First of all, I would like to welcome the Minister to the House, and it's good to see that the Minister who is responsible for the bill in the House, and I know that he has spent a lot of time listening to speakers and listening to their views on the personal insolvency bill. And I would like to welcome the introduction of this bill. And it will be long remembered for one of the most major pieces of reforming legislation introduced by this government, introduced into this House over a long number of years. And in doing so, I would like to thank the Minister and his staff, and specifically the people in the Attorney General's office and the drafters. They have done a huge amount of work in a short space of time on this bill, and they've worked under extreme pressure and to get this published before the summer, and it is good that this will be in the committee over the summer recess. This is very welcome, and the bill directly addresses problems faced by people living right across Ireland who have went through from the periods of boom to bust. And I've no doubt this will affect a huge amount of people, and people from low levels of borrowing to very high levels of borrowing. I think everybody in this House, as a public representative, will know people from personal debt to mortgages to business debt to everything, and from personal loans to credit card loans. It is anybody that is in any sort of arrears, and this affects thousands of Irish people right across the country. And I've seen on a daily basis in my own office where there's people coming in and struggling paying their own mortgage or their own personal debts. And there's people out there who want to pay their mortgage and will almost go hungry to pay their mortgage. And then you have people who can afford to pay the mortgage but will not pay the mortgage. And they think there's going to be a kind of debt forgiveness, blanket debt forgiveness. And I hope that people understand that this is not about a blanket debt forgiveness and paying and looking after people who can pay but won't pay. And this follows on, a huge amount of what is in this bill follows on the recommendations that was laid out in the Kehoe report from last year. And there is some very good recommendations within the Kehoe report. The flexibility of this bill can be seen in three different mechanisms used to deal with the personal debt of the debt relief notice, the debt settlement agreement and the personal insolvency agreement. And first of all, I would like to welcome the reduction of the term of bankruptcy from 12 years to 3 years. And this will make bankruptcy a more functioning option rather than the underused alternative than what it is at the moment. And Deputy Wallace spoke about the behaviour of some of the banks. And I have people, and I have no doubt people from my own constituency who have come to me, and I've no doubt they've been with Deputy Wallace's and with other public representatives in my own county, where we had bank bailiffs coming in the middle of the night and taking machinery out of people's yards because they're unable to pay their repayments to the banks. And these are, if it's Bank of Ireland, if it's AIB, it's some of our well-known banks. And on occasions, we have people with criminal records coming in, acting on behalf of the banks, taking machinery from people and going in and harassing their families and themselves. Nobody needs to be treated in that, even though we do require and need functioning banks and they have to be making profits, and I can understand it. But there's ways and means of doing your business and the bank doing their business with the people and for the people. And I can assure you they didn't get that sort of reception, first of all, when they went in to the bank looking for the loan. And we have a huge amount of people in no fault of their own who have fell into bankruptcy and will face that for 12 years. And there's extremely good business people who have fell into bankruptcy, who had very good viable businesses, but because they weren't being paid for what the services they were doing or the goods that they were giving out, they fell into bankruptcy. And I really believe that this bill addresses this problem in the reduction of the bankruptcy from 12 years to 3 years. And I really believe there's people that have fell into bankruptcy, and if we are to turn around our economy at the moment, we need these people back in business. We need these people back in their own business, creating jobs, because they are often from people who will take the risk, or people with the brains of business and everything like that. So I really think that will work out. And it brings the bankruptcy kind of within the norm of the European standards. This is something that I have been looking for through my role in opposition and in government. And I know this is a Troika commitment, but this is something that the government really is want to act upon as well. Because if we are to get out of the current system where we are today, well then this bill this bill, I believe, will do that. And it's an important step for us to modernise the bankruptcy law, that it will provide an incentive for the banks to cooperate with those people in arrears. And as a public representative, and even in the boom times, I remember being elected to this House in 2002, there were still people unable to pay their mortgages, but it's more prevalent and prevalent each day. And I remember on occasions where you're almost able to go into your local bank and negotiate with a customer. As a public representative, go in and negotiate with the customer. That doesn't happen anymore. The bank won't even listen to you anymore. They'll send you to some personnel in their head office in Dublin or wherever, and they don't even know the case, the personal circumstances behind the case that you're actually talking about. So I'm very pleased that this bill is designed to ensure that the homeowner will have every opportunity to remain in their home. And this is not about taking the roofs taking the home from underneath people. And a person's home is their castle. It's something that they have built up over years, where they have their own memories, where they've reared their families, and where they want to stay in. And this government wants to give that person every opportunity for them to remain in their own family home. And people deserve that. And specifically people who are wanting to pay the mortgage and will make every effort to pay the mortgage. We have people at the moment going around this country and telling people not to pay the household charge. But at the same time, they're giving out to the banks.
Just to let you know, you're over your 5 minutes.
At the same time, they're criticising the banks for not negotiating with people. This is a collective effort going forward to get us out of the current economic climate that we're in today. And if we were to do that, we all have to work together, both opposition and government. And so, if you have people on the opposition benches going around the country saying that it's an unfair tax, the household charge, but yet alone telling the government to make sure and pay their mortgage for them. Well, I believe if a person is making an effort to pay their mortgage but won't pay their household charge, well, I find something very peculiar about that. However, I would still encourage anybody who is struggling with their mortgage, and specifically to have mortgage arrears, to engage with their lender. Because if you do engage with the lender, they are a means and a way of getting out of any situation that you're in. And I know there is no easy solution in that, and specifically there is no easy solution in tackling mortgage arrears. But it is a matter that has to be confronted if you are to remain in your home. And everyone, as I said earlier, everyone has their own details, everyone has their own difficulty and challenges going forward. So again, I would like to thank the Minister and the people who puts a huge amount of work into this bill over the last number of months. I have to say it's the most ground-breaking piece of legislation that has been introduced into this House over the last number of years.
Deputy's now next. Just